My name is Dwayne Thomas, and welcome to the Great Libraries. I've done many things in my lifetime. I've had many nicknames in my lifetime. Earthquake, EQ, Honky Tonk Man, HTM. Bob Bauer, you gave those to me. The Wild Man is a name that I use that they called me when I was a bouncer at the Faucet back in the 80s. It's back when I was in shape. Big E, Elvis, I don't know where I got that name, but that's where they called me over to, at the BOF and Steelmaking, and the number 3 zinc grip. And I've worn many hats in my lifetime also, this including 35 years of my life I wore that hat or other hats similar to it. I started out at Armco on May 19th, 1971, and I started out in Labor Reserve, and I've worked every crummy possible job that you could work while I was out there. Middletown, Hamilton coke plants, blast furnace, blue furnace, which was absolutely horrible to work in the summertime. I almost quit over that job. You just sweat your life away. And I remember an instance over there one time where I couldn't stack the sheets coming off the blue furnace right. And they was all crooked, and the poor crane operator in 70 building, he had to pick them up. And they was all crooked, and they pushed him over there on a buggy, and he jumped out of the crane cab and looked down and goes, "How in the hell am I supposed to pick him up?" I said, "I don't know, bub, have a great day." And I turned around and just walked away. They just let him sit there. I wasn't going to try to restack him, they was too hot. What a crummy job that was. Coke plants, not a fun job. And there's a couple of times I had some decent jobs on there, but that was just by accident. Then I went over to masonry, and I got stuck over in masonry. Bob Maddox, you remember us working over the coke plant together. I think it was on a midnight terminal. We were sitting out in the car listening to some type of heavy metal, death music. I can't remember what it was. You'll know the name of the song. I can't remember it. And he worked with us over in masonry. And these are some of the funniest characters and some of the greatest people that I've ever met in my lifetime. And I'm going to start out with Rick Dirth and Tom Annear. Now, you put Rick Dirth, Tom Annear, and myself together, and you had the Three Stooges. That's all you had. We were crazy as hell, ate up, and anytime Dean Myers put us on any job, we got everything tore up but what the job was supposed to be torn up. We worked labor and masonry. These guys were wild, man. We were all three wild enough to shoot at. Now, Rick Dirth comes from a great family. They owned Dirth's Hobby Shop down there on Central Avenue in Middletown. I used to go down there as a kid, I remember, and just peer through the windows. I don't believe I ever went in. And then Rick came out and worked with us in masonry. Rick was very talented. And I even went to Rick and Diana's marriage when I was married to Rose. Rick's very talented, very intelligent, strong. He took karate with me years ago, and he's very artistic. And for those of you guys and gals that's working over at the BOF up in the Keister area, I think it's by the water attendant room, I think, there's a mural up there. There used to be a mural up there, and Rick painted that. And Rick was very artistic. He loved the group Kiss, and I remember that we'd sit out there in his old blue Malibu that he had and listen to Kiss music. And he would have Kiss magazines, and he'd be showing me everything about Kiss. He knew everything about Kiss that you could possibly know. Very talented, great guy, great worker, and come from a great family. And his family that he left behind is great people too. They're real good people. Diana, all your family, just great people. So Dean Myers, bless his heart and bless his soul. Dean, if there's an upstairs, I'm sure you're up there. sent Tom Lanier, Rick Dirth, and myself over to 191 building. Now I'm going to tell some stories on these guys because that's the whole purpose of this video. I might even make up some about Tom Lanier and Maynard Earl, but I'll get to Maynard Earl later. No, it's all going to be the truth. He sent us over to the 191 building to tear up a floor or something like that over around the zinc grip area. So we went on over there, we walked in the 191 door, and it's just a big coil field with cranes all over the place, carrying these coils to and fro, which I did when I was a crane operator. And Rick said he had to go use the restroom. So me and Tom said, all right, we'll wait on you. So he went down to the old block restroom down there, and we stand there for probably 5 minutes, waiting on him to come back. So we just start making our way across the coil field. Well, we hear this great big siren, and we just stop dead in our tracks and start looking up for a crane. Well, there wasn't any crane, so we couldn't figure out what was going on. So we went ahead and moved a little bit more, and here comes that siren again. By that time, me and Tomcat, I called him Tomcat. I called him Pumpkinhead, the human jack-o'-lantern. I called Tom everything. He called me a few things too. We looked at each other. We knew we'd been had by Rick, and Rick was over behind a coil laughing at us. Wild enough to shoot at. We had so much fun when we were out there. Tom Lanier, on the other hand, wow. But anyway, Rick was a great guy. I loved Rick, and he died on August the 19th, 2016. He had cancer. I think it was some type of throat cancer. And he come into Walmart when I was working in a photo lab a few times and come back here and talk to me, as well as Tom Lanier. They all found out that the Wild Man, or Big E, or Elvis, whatever you want to call me, you can make up a new nickname, I don't care, I've been called everything, is working back in a photo lab. So all my Armco buddies would come back, and AK buddies, and booties, the girls too, would come back and see me. But Dean Meyer sent Rick Dirth, Tom Lanier, and myself over to the soaking pits. Now, we've been in all 32 of the soaking pits, every one of them. They've been closed down for years. All 32 of them. And we was down there cleaning some coke at the bottom and everything, and coke was just flying everywhere. It's horrible. And we went up to take a break in the maintenance's lunchroom at the soaking pits. Well, I'm sitting there, and Rick Dirth is looking at me and laughing at me. Tomcat's looking at me and laughing at me. Sarge Fetters is working with us. He's sitting up here laughing at me. So I finally look at him. I say, why don't you catch me up on what you guys are laughing at? And I said, well, what? Well, they said, what? And I said, they said, go look in the mirror. So I went ahead and jumped up and went and looked in the mirror. Total black face. My face was totally black. All you could see was the whites of my eyes, pink lips, and my teeth. That's all you could see. And I looked at that, and I went, holy shit. And they all busted out laughing because I knew I was going to get my ass chewed when I went home with all that dirt on me, because it doesn't come off with your first shower. So I looked at him and I said, I ain't been black 5 minutes and I already hate you white people. Well, that put them on the floor. Everybody was laughing so hard they were crying their eyes out. Even the maintenance guys who hated us were laughing too. But these were great guys. Dean sent us over to not number 2 open heart, but one of the slab furnaces. There's 4 slab furnaces, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The 4th one is a walking beam furnace. That's not too bad. But 1, 2, and 3 has hearth block in it. And we was over there one night on a midnight turn, trying to get the hearth block in there. The brick was so hot.
How hot was it?
That we had to run out of the furnace because our feet caught on fire and our boots were smoking. And we was all looking for a water fountain or a water hose to put our feet out. That's how hot it was. And we was all running out at the same time, just screaming in agony and terror. It burnt the skin off the bottom of our feet. Then we wisened up because we were stupid. And then they had block shoes that you could put under your boots, and we started using them. And number 2 open heart, same way. It got so hot in there, catch your shoes on fire. That was not easy work. Masonry was not easy work. And all you guys and gals that's worked out in masonry, you're going to understand that, you're going to know that. So, but we made sure to have fun, you know, when we was working together. So, Dean Meyer sent Tom Lanier and myself up to number 2 open hearth on one of the furnaces. I think it might have been number 9 furnace. And there's a charging machine that's kind of like a crane, except it's more like a locomotive. It's kind of hard to explain. And it's got a great big boom on it. And the operator rides on the inside of this crane cab. All you old timers know what I'm talking about. And he rides with this trolley that goes back and forth. And of course, it bridges up and down the flow. Well, that boom would come out and they would attach it into a pan and lock into it and pick it up and come back and then take it down to the furnace and charge it into the furnace and put it on a different buggy. And the hoist, it would go down. Well, they had 2 different cars up there and they had empty pans on them. And so we was up there trying to tear the front wall out. Hard work, dirty work. And Tom was standing on, we had 2x12s up there, and Tom was standing on one side up, and there's a big gap between us. And I was standing on this side up, and I had my crowbar in there, trying to pry on it. Tom had his crowbar in there trying to pry on it. And Tom gets the big, bright idea, he's gonna jump up in the air, jump down on that 2x4. When he did, it snapped the 2x4. 2x4 is gone. They come out from underneath our feet. I'm hanging by a crowbar. Tomcat's hanging by a crowbar. And all we can do is hang there and laugh at each other. We didn't know what we were going to do. We just had to drop down to the floor, which is probably a 7-8 foot drop. It wasn't an easy fall either. But that's how crazy we were. And Rick Dirth, when he was taking karate with me, we would be over soaking pits and we'd be stacking 1-inch brick up to, maybe a foot high and jumping off of pallets and coming down and busting the brick. And poor old Dean Myers come over there one night and saw what we'd been doing, didn't get any work done on what we were supposed to do. But he just shook his head and just kept on going. But that's the kind of fun that we had out there. Me, well, I should say Rick Dirth, Tom Manier, and myself. And I'm the only one left. They're both gone now. Tom died on November 27th, 1918, and Rick died August the 9th, it looks like. I got it written up here and I got my glasses on. August the 9th or August the 19th of 2016. Great guys, I miss them. I could go on and on and on and on and tell you about how crazy these guys were. Now, Dean Myers was a good guy. He was our salaried foreman, our labor foreman in masonry. And we worked with Calvin Kirk. He was the bricklayer foreman. Dean used to sit over and tell us stories about Irene, his wife Irene, and he ran with the Carlisle Fire Department. He was sitting over one day, and we was number 2 open hearth, and I was sitting there, and he said, "Dwayne, you wouldn't believe how Charlie Coochie was." I'm going to get to him in a minute. How Charlie was when he first started coming to work at Armco. He said, fresh out of Greece, could barely speak any English. And I took him down in the stack in the sewers, told him what I wanted to get done, showed him what had to get done, and put a hoist operator up there because I had to put other people in other places. I went to check on the other guys, come back after lunch, and he said, "Charlie's sitting on this bench, sweat just pouring off of him." And I looked at him, I said, "Well, have you taken lunch yet, Charlie?" He goes, "No, I haven't taken lunch yet." He says, "Well, take your lunch and then go back down there and work some more and clean the sewers and the stacks." He goes, "Well, I've cleaned all the sewers and all the stack and I've come to a brick wall. Do you want me to knock that brick wall out and continue on?" And Dean looked at me, he said, I looked at Charlie, he says, "You cleaned all the sewers out and the stacks?" He said, "Yeah." "No, you sit down there and take a break." So he went ahead and went down and checked on his work, and by damn, he cleaned out all this. He did a 5-man job by himself. Charlie, very, very strong. I'm going to get to him in a minute. Dean Myers was a great guy. He could have fired me 30, 40 times. Dean, bless your heart. He's buried over in Butler County Memorial Gardens, him and his wife. And we had a good time with Dean. Dean was a good man, and Dean died back in February 19th, looks like 2011. Now, Coochie, Charlie Coochie Keithus, Charlie Tunham, Chuck. He's had more nicknames than I have. He was a little Greek. He's probably was about 3 foot high and weighed about 300 pounds. Not really, but he was about probably 5 foot high and probably weighed about 220, 230 pounds. Built like a fire plug, solid muscle, but big belly, but solid muscle. What a strong dude this guy was. If you was ever in a fight in a back alley, you'd want him on your side. You wouldn't want to stand against him. He was crazy strong. He came over to the soaking pits one night with me, with Tom Anir and Rick Dirth and myself, and we're trying to knock some of this wall out. So we're hanging on a hanging scaffold. They're standing on a hanging scaffold. So Charlie comes in there, cusses us, calls us all kind of MFs and CSs and everything. That's just the way Charlie was. We all did that. I won't say the words because I don't want anybody to get offended. But we're not going anywhere with this brick. So he comes in, let me show you how to do this. Well, he showed us how to do it. He poked that crowbar in there, moved it around a few times, poked it in over here, moved it around a few times, poked it in here, and pushed down on it, and the whole wall come over on top of the 2x12s. Blood, spit, and ass was getting ready to go flying everywhere. We all seen our death flash before our eyes, or life. Our lives flashed before our eyes, but we got away in time. And we stood there and cussed him and called him everything but a milk cow. He about killed us. But that's the way Charlie was. And we came over to the locker room, over the BOF locker room one night. This is back when we could drive in, back in the early 70s. And I was taking my boots off, my socks off, because I think that night I had been doing a safety man job or something, and I didn't really need to take a shower. But he looked at me, he goes, "Hey, dumbass, why don't you put some new socks on?" I went, "What?" He goes, "Don't you have any new socks? Or any better socks than that?" I went, "No, not at the minute." And he grabbed in his locker and gave me a pair of socks, and he had tears in his eyes. He thought I was poor, and he thought that I couldn't afford to buy my own socks. I said, "Charlie, I can afford to buy my own socks. I'm just tight." He goes, "No, man, you go ahead and take these." And like I said, he had tears in his eyes. So he gets, the same night, he strips off all of his clothes, which is a god-awful sight. Sorry, Charlie. Goes into the shower. I'm putting my clothes on, my street clothes back on. He comes back, and he slides on water on the floor, on the BOF locker room floor, and slides right past the row, and I went, "Safe!" And he called me all kinds of MFs and CSs and the whole thing. So I picked his big ass up off the floor. I said, "Charlie, look at your back. It's black. You're going to have to take another shower, buddy." A whole bunch of MFs and CSs, and I could tell he was mad. Now he flopped all his way back to the shower room, limping back and forth because his flip-flop was broke. And that's the kind of stuff that Charlie did. Charlie was very strong, very determined, very trustworthy. If he liked you, you was in. If he didn't like you, you was out. And kind of all these guys was that way. And Coochie died back in February, looks like February the 10th, in 2012. He's a great guy, great guy. And I have to look over here because I can't keep these dates in my head. I hope you guys forgive me for it. This is not supposed to be a Hollywood type movie. It's just something I'm putting together for my friends that I've worked with. Now, old Bob Bowman, Sr., he died back in June 29th, 1996. He was a bricklayer over there. He was a great guy, and he's some type of a relative to mine. And his son, Bobby Bowman. Now, this guy was wild enough to shoot at, too. Big drinker, loved to party at the bars, even married a girl at one time that I used to date out there, Vicky Evans. And she married Bob and became Vicky Bowman. I don't even know if Vicky's around anymore. I'm losing so many of my friends, I don't keep up with it. But he was a drinker, but he was a worker. He would get up there, he'd miss work. He'd only work like 4 days a week. Comical, could tell a joke like, you can't believe. And I was the delegate, union delegate over there at the time, and they pulled him in the office. Now, don't get me wrong, everybody loved Bobby. You couldn't help but love Bobby because he was comical, and when you put him on a job, he's going to get the work done. They called him in the office, and they said, "Bob, you're only working 4 days a week. How comes you're only working 4 days a week?" He said, "Because I can't live on 3. And that's what he said. And they just looked at each other like, "What?" And I just busted out laughing and looked at Bob. I said, "Bob, And they said, well, we're going to give you a day off for missing work. And go, well, there's a fishing tournament come up. Can you make it 2? He asked for 2 days off. They gave him 2 days off, but they only marked 1 day off. Comical guy, funny, wild enough to shoot at, loved to party and loved to drink. And I think that's what got him. And I think, see, Junior, he died February 11th, 2006. Now, when I was over at the Butler County Memorial Gardens, a lot of these guys are buried at Butler County Memorial Gardens. Tom Manier is buried at Woodside. Rick Durst is buried at Woodside. Dean Myers is at Butler County Memorial Gardens. Coochie, Charlie Country Kitchen, he's buried over Butler County Memorial Gardens. Bob Bauer, Bob Bowman Sr. and Bob Bowman Jr. is buried over at the Butler County Memorial Gardens, as well as Charlie Callbreath. We called him Collie. Now, back in the 70s, they used to have a job over at number 2 Open Hearth that was called checker blower or checker cleaner. Now, this is not when you go inside and clean the checkers and chain the checkers or drill the checkers. That's a different job. That's a back-breaking job, too. That was a horrible job. But you get up there and you chain checkers and you drill them, and all that flue dust goes down into the sewers, and that's when you have to go down and clean the sewers and it stacks out. It's a filtration system for the furnace. It helps it breathe and get its heat. But Charlie was the checker blower leader. There were 6 of us, 3 on one side and 3 on the other side, and we would work side by side. But when the damper would go up, one group would sit down, and if the damper went down, we went in and blew them. We had to, if the dampers went half and half, run for your life, because that means something's wrong, and there's something's wrong upstairs. And I've seen flames shoot out of those bulkheads 8-10 feet. And if you're on one of the benches and trying to work it, you run for your life. But Charlie was a great guy. The black man, he laid concrete on the side and he laid pipe on the side. He always told me, I'm gonna go home and lay pipe. Everybody knew what he was talking about. Not trying to be vulgar, I'm just trying to tell you about my friends. Callbreath, he was the checker blower leader, and he always sprayed the bulkheads when we were done and made our time out and sent our time in. And he would go out and do other things like drain the water lines or the air lines if they had water in it, because he'd have to use the air to spray the vessel. Charlie was a great guy, and we rode him like a pack mule. We just picked on him and picked on him and picked on him. But when you go into the shower room and take a shower, Charlie was built like Rocky, like Sylvester Stallone. He was an old man, but he was packed. You could tell, you could tell, and he never lifted any weights, but he was just naturally built like that. So you could look at him and say, well, yeah, I don't think I'd want to mess with him too much. But he was a very religious man and a very nice man, a very sweet man, and a great worker. But we still picked on him, but I loved him. I loved all these guys. And Charlie, he died back January 21st, 2009. Now, we had a guy over there by the name of Smitty. I'll put his grave up, and it'll put the date, but I didn't get his date for this video today. Jordan Smith, another black guy that worked on the checker blower crew. You have to understand it used to be an all-black crew because they kept our black people down back up to that point. The affirmative action had to come out, and that's when they started bringing women in and letting the black people get out of these labor jobs and these janitor jobs and get up into the production jobs and the maintenance jobs, which was only fair. It should have been that way all along. These guys worked very hard for many, many, many years and was held down and was put on those, the labor jobs and janitor jobs. But Smitty, we used to sit in there and play a game called 5 Up. And it was Tom Manier, it was myself, it was Mike Stewart, Russell Wolf. I'm going to get to them guys here in a minute. And we go back here, and I'm telling you, Smitty knew how to play them cards, man, and he would bust your ass. He knew exactly how to sit behind and take your jacks. For all you Trump players out there or 5 Up players, you know what I'm talking about. Fun job. And we used to play poker in a trailer there too, in a checker blower trailer. We had people coming from all over. I shouldn't say that. We've had people from track gang come over and go in there and sit with us and put the money on the table. Hey, it's lunchtime, deal. And that's the way we were. And Jordan, I can't remember when Jordan died. I'll find out about that later on. But Smitty, Jordan Smith, took a fall over there. And when you're down in there and you're blowing the sewers, you have to go downstairs. You have to climb down a vertical ladder, go downstairs and turn on different valves to the soot blowers to blow that flue dust out into the stack. Because they didn't want it building up. If it built up too high, it would restrict the air that's trying to come through and go out and filter out and keep that furnace hot. So he was safety man up here one day. And you know what? I wasn't working checker blowers then, I don't believe. I think I was what was I doing? I think that week I stepped up to the masonry truck, I think is what I did, because I had the seniority to do it. And nobody else wanted to do it, was trained or something. I think I did. But he pulled that grating up and chained it and then put a chain across it. And then he went up there and I don't know what happened, but he tripped and he fell through that hole from the grating. And I think he fell like 18, 20 feet. It busted them all up. And I seen the ambulance go over there and I drove the truck. Yeah, I was driving the truck. And I drove the truck over there and I got out looking around trying to find out what was going on. And it was Smitty that had fell through that grating. And he was all busted up and they was putting him in the ambulance and I was so worried for him. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. He looked at me, grabbed my arm. He says, "I'll be all right, partner." He never came back to work, never come back to work. It busted him all up. I remember going to his funeral. I think it was at the Riggs Funeral Home in Middletown. And Smitty was a great guy. We had another guy over there called Tender. We always called him Slim. Gums, he never wore his teeth. He could eat corn off the cob with his gums. And he was a great guy, always laughing. He had the greatest personality. Ernie Johnson was his name. And just a great, great guy. And we used to laugh and laugh and laugh. He told me one day, when you get weak in the hip, you get stiff in the lip. And I sat there and I went, "What? You get weak in the hip? Oh, okay, I know what you're talking about." What a great guy. I don't know whatever's happened to him. I haven't heard anything out of Ernie. I can't find any obituary on him. I know he's got to be way up there in age. He's got to be way up there. Let's see, we're going to go to Mike Stewart now. Mike died on March the 2nd, 2009. I'm just going to read off the board, guys, because I can't remember who I am half the time. Mike Stewart was the real deal. Mike had a PhD in the martial arts. I never knew it at the time. I'd been taking karate for years, me and Rick Durk, but this guy was studying Kung Fu on the side and developed his own style, wrote books on it. But he worked with us, and what a crackerjack. We was blowing checkers. He blew checkers with us for a while. I think like on a vacation or something like that. He stepped up to it or moved over to it because he wanted to work some day turns, because it was a day turn Monday through Friday job. And I was pushing the pipe in, listening with the elbow on it, listening for it. That told you the hole was open, and you go to the next one and move it. And I got up there and went, come to pull out, and "I'm just some wild and crazy guy." And I stood there and looked at him. I went, "What?" He goes, "I'm just a wild and crazy guy." I said, "Mike, what the hell are you talking about?" He goes, "Don't you watch Saturday Night Live?" I went, "No." "Go home and watch it. That's Steve Martin. You'll laugh your ass off." And guess what? I went home and watched it, and I laughed my ass off. These guys were funny. And he was a great guy. In fact, I was stuck on watching Saturday Night Live from there on out until I got over it. Then I went to something else. Mike was a great guy, and he's had a lot of tragedy in his life. The last time I saw Mike was at the Texas Roadhouse in Hamilton. He was there with his lovely wife, and they were sitting there eating, and I went over and said, "Mike, how you doing, man?" And I shook his hand. We hugged each other. He goes, "Well, I'm still hanging on. I'm fighting it." And I said, "Fighting what?" He goes, "I got a tumor in my back. It's cancer." So I said, "Oh, man, I didn't know that. I'm sorry." And just not too, when did he pass away? Well, he's been gone 10 years. March the 2nd, 2009. And I didn't know he passed away until somebody told me later on that he passed away. What a great guy. Great sense of humor, intelligent. But once again, not one of these guys you want to mess with. Don't want to mess with none of these guys. If they don't know you and they don't like you, they could really put a hurting on you. So he had some tragedy in his family. His daughter was murdered. And the guy that murdered her, I'm not going to get too much into it because I don't have the facts of it, and I don't want to say anything that's out of line. But she's buried up there with him. They cremated her, and she's buried at the foot of his grave. She's a beautiful girl. And it's kind of a good thing that Mike wasn't here when that happened, because that guy's life wouldn't have been worth anything. Mike would have got him. He'd have laid the smack down on him. I know Mike. But that was tragic. That was tragic. But he was such a great guy, and he had a lovely wife, a lovely family, and just good people. He worked in Masonry as hourly, helped us with checker blowing for a while, and then he moved up into production planning. So he was a great guy. Mike, I miss you, buddy. I love you. I know exactly where you're buried because I've got photographs of your grave. It took me forever to find you. Somebody should have told me you're buried way out in the country. But he's way up on the top of the hill on the left-hand side. And I have curried that cemetery over looking for these guys. And he's Butler County Memorial Gardens also. Great, great guy. Another guy was Jack Bush. He was one of our bricklayers. He died January the 18th, 2016. Jack was a premier bricklayer. He was a finished bricklayer. He got all the fancy jobs that had to look pretty. And it was to the point where he was on a special assignment for it on day turns, Monday through Friday. Now, I'll tell you, when he got out and did some work, you could look at his work and put it to side by side of somebody else's work. There's mud laying all over the place. It's horrible. His is just pristine. Pristine work. And if you told Jack to hurry up, he probably would have started crying. He couldn't do it. He was a perfectionist. And you could tell by looking at his work. Very, very fantastic bricklayer. He was a great guy. We teased him all the time. Sarge Fetters. Good Lord have mercy. I know all you guys know Sarge. Sarge worked with us in Masonry. Now let me tell you what happened. Dean Meyer sends Tom Lanier, Rick Dirth, Sarge, and myself. Pete Stylianis is up on the hoist because he's got the seniority. It's an easier job. He sent Tom Lanier, Rick Dirth, Sarge Fetters, and myself down into the sewers on one of the open hearth furnaces. I can't remember which one it was. And the stack was full of water. It was like 2 foot of water. And when we looked in and took the block out, we said, we're going to have to get boots. Went up there and got boots. Well, we had to string the lights before we could do anything. So had an extension cord, had the light cord, and I went ahead and put them together, and a big bolt of lightning flashed. It knocked my head back. All I seen was flashes. Knocked my hard hat off. It sank down into the water. Now this is what we had to go through. And I'm standing there holding these two cords, and I went, holy shit, man, what was that? I look over to them, Sarge, Mr. Marine, Rick Dirth, Tom Lanier, both bent over, laughing so hard that they were actually crying. They had tears rolling out of their eyes because I looked so stupid, and it was so stupid what I did. So I'm looking at them, I'm like, well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So I went ahead and just popped it back in real quick, and we took off. And then we had to get a pump all that water out. My hard hat it wasn't this one. It was different. We all wore our hard hats on backwards. Not because we thought it looked cool, but because a lot of things, when you're bending over and picking up brick, that bill is going to fall off. It wouldn't do that through the center of gravity aft. So you young kids didn't come up with that. We did. Probably can't even do it today. But we was down there, Sarge was down there with us. And Sarge could tell a joke. After we got done cleaning a lot of stuff out, of course, we had the wheelbarrows down there. We lowered the wheelbarrows down. Send cardboard. They send, all you old timers know what I'm talking about. Maddox, Bob, you know what I'm talking about. Jen, you probably know too. I'm sure you've been down in there. They send, Bob Bauer, you probably know too. I think you've been over in Masonry before. Send us down there, send some cardboard down there. We put that cardboard in the wheelbarrows. sleep like babies. You talk about some good sleep. We'd be down on our midnight turns and we would work in shifts. And if somebody being in their wheelbarrow, taking a break, laying on that, in that cardboard in that wheelbarrow. I'm telling you, I almost wish I had a wheelbarrow at home. In fact, a couple of us thought about getting wheelbarrows and putting padding in them and selling them. You can sleep fantastic in a wheelbarrow if it's got cardboard in it. Anyway, Sarge was a great guy. Him and his lovely wife got killed on May the 23rd, 2016 on their sickle. And they had went somewhere to do something. Both of them died, I guess, instantly on the scene. Sarge was a great guy, former Marine, decorated Marine, Vietnam vet, went into the military, went into the Army Reserves, Army Reserves, or National Guard when he got out. Straight shooter, but could tell a joke like nobody you could ever see in your life. We've sat down there and laughed until we cried, because he knew how to do the punchline, and he just knew exactly what he was doing. So Sarge is a great guy. He was one of our trustees. And I could tell a lot of stories on Sarge. He was up there when my face was black from the soaking pits, and they was all laughing at me. So the joke was on me, but guess what? I love jokes. It doesn't matter. So Sarge, God bless you and your wife. You was a great guy. I didn't know your lovely wife, but I'm sure she was fantastic too. Thank you for your service. And I honor you for that, and honor all these guys that's been in the military. And if there's a high country up there, I know you guys are in it. So now we got Wayne Netherly. He died in September the 17th, 2016. He was one of our bricklayers. He was on Calvin Kirk's turn. He was a great guy. And I think he liked them big trucks. That might have been Jim McClung. I can't remember. But he was a great guy. Comical, I think he was into sports and then football and stuff like that. I think he liked that kind of stuff. If he didn't, correct me. Some of you guys that know him, just correct me in the comment section or something, because it's been a long time. It's been a long time since I've seen these guys. Bill King, Booger Bill. What can I say? This guy was certifiable crazy. He used to work the shit out of me until he found out who my dad was. And he come up to me one night. He put me on one job, stick me on another job, stick me on another job, almost like Walmart. You're supposed to be doing this over here, but then you get that done, you come over. He like to killed me. He come over to me one night and he goes, "Dwayne, is your dad Brar Thomas?" I said, "Yeah." "Brar Thomas?" I said, "Yeah, that's my dad." "In the rigger department?" I said, "Yeah." "Damn, man, I never put the two names together. I've known Brar for years." I said, "You have?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I don't think he'd appreciate you treating his little boy like that and treating me like shit." And he looked at me, he busted out laughing, and we both busted out laughing. From there on out, I got all the easy jobs. He took care of me every night because he respected my dad that much. And I still got out and worked, but most of the time driving the truck and, put him on the truck. "Well, what you gonna haul?" "Well, we'll figure it out later," or something. He treated me great. And we had a safety meeting one night. He started out hourly, and he ended up salary as a bricklayer foreman. And he did that job for quite a while. And we had a safety meeting one night. It was on a Monday night, and they sent out for pizza. So we couldn't drive in the mill anymore. We had to ride these buses. So they sent somebody out to pick up the pizza. Brought it back in there, put it out on the table. We must have had 5-6 boxes of it. Well, everybody's talking and laughing. It's supposed to be a safety meeting, but they have to do. We didn't talk anything about safety. We just laughing and cutting up. And we was eating some of that pizza, and Bill reached over and took a mushroom. That's why we called him Booger Bill. Took a mushroom, act like he pulled it out of his nose and put it back on that pizza. Whoa, everybody's going, "Ah." "That pizza's yours, Bill." He wanted the whole pizza, I guess, so he went ahead and he took that pizza back in the office.